so I can hear all your guys' conversations. It's a surprisingly sensitive microphone. So, both way, please. All in both way.
You know what a lot if you back in 5 off the level, wall, yeah, all for sure. Oh, wait, we had to ask him, what are you talking about? Mr. Blake.
Thank you. What's up?
A video game called
I could try. It's gonna take me a while. Okay. All right.
how much?
Shoosh. Okay. We're live. We're on the air. Everybody watch. Okay. We're gonna talk about some blend tools today, which will take your creatures, for example, this cat, and then this fish. Let me zoom out a little bit on the fish. You're gonna turn it into a catfish. Wow. There it is. Okay. So how I accomplished this, I did this, first of all, I did it in a hurry, so it's not the greatest. Okay. Second of all, I chose a cat picture and a fish picture that had a similar sort of tone to their color scheme. Okay. This is a lighter colored, closer to like the white end of the spectrum, the lighter end of the spectrum cat. And I chose a less interesting, more silver, less descript fish, because you know how fish have a ton of variety. So do cats. But by choosing the a fish that was similar to my cat's color tone, it made the blending part much easier once we got to that stage. So to do that, I had a mask made of my cat. And then I had a mask made of my fish, which is actually on this layer. Okay. Fish looks something like that at this point. I selected the fish and then I did a light softness brush, masked out some of the things there. But I'm going to show you guys how to get it to this point so that yours is probably looking something like mine. So there are people in here who are trying to listen and there are people who are not listening. I can hear you both right now. Thank you. All right. So I've combined my creatures in a similar direction so that it has a sort of a cohesive look. But how do we get this sort of effect to happen here? Let's find out. So we look on this. You'll see on my fish here, there's a little bit of some fur action happening. That is by use of the clone stamp tool. Let me go back to the start, which should be right about here. Oh, that's opening. There we go. So, clone stamp tool is one that is really useful. It's one that we talked about in the duck horse. It's one that is a tool that you'll use all the time in photoshopping, but it is a tool. It is a tool that comes in two halves, all right? The first half of the clone stamp tool, which is S on your keyboard, is to first select a target. Now, this can get a little confusing when we're working with composite images because you have to be careful of which layer you're pulling your target from. And in this case, I'm going to start on the pixel layer, which is this one, on my Photoshop, not the mask layer, because the only information on this layer, even though it's doing the see-throughness sort of thing, the only information on that layer is black or white. This has all the other bitmaps, or the bits mapped to give me the colors that I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to click on my physical dimension, not my mask dimension. I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard with the clone stamp tool, okay? You'll notice how it turns into this little sort of crosshair, this little target, all right? The only information that I have to reference from this layer is this. This is all that Photoshop can see. Actually, hold on, that might not be true. Let me sample over here. No, it can see through a mask. So if you imagine, my mask is turned off, and if I held Alt, clicked on the pupil of my fish here, and then I shift clicked on my mask again to turn it off. You can see that the pupil is now attached. That's kind of creepy, actually. You can see the pupil is now attached to this little ghost image of what, when I click, where it's going to pull that data from. So once I click here, you'll see a little cross sign, a little division sort of symbol pop up wherever I held Alt and clicked. That's what it's going to sample. This is the second half of the clone stamp tool, where it pulls from what you sample. So if I hold Alt, click on the eyeball, and then let go of Alt, move over here, it's going to sample wherever I held onto Alt. So if we give our fish an extra eyeball here, make it flounder style, it's because it's sampling off of this pixel layer. Now, the way that you would use this in an animal composition scenario, such as this catfish, is to, where the two animals meet, kind of blur the line a little bit, and not literally blurring it by making it less clear. We're going to swap back and forth with the clone stamp tool so that this hard edge gets a little bit easier. You can see how the scale effect kind of makes it look a little nicer. All right. So the way that you would do that is first click on your bottom layer, your pixel layer, hold Alt. It cannot be this funny. Let's figure it out, please. Okay. Hold Alt and click to sample off of these fish scales over here. But before you start masking, if I click right here, nothing's going to happen to the cat because I'm masking on top of the fish. I got to switch to my other creature, and then I can start adding some of this fish data. Oops, I sampled off my cat. I'm going to add some of this fish data to my cat here, like this. And it's going to make that line, even though it's not the prettiest, but because we're merging the two sets of pixels, the two pieces of information here, you can see when I hover over the mask part, it just turns black. It's going to make it a little more believable. Like if I squint my eye or if I look at this cat from a distance, it looks like it could really be a mix of scales and fur. Now we're going to go the opposite direction so that we still get some fur in there as well, mixing the general sort of compositions, so to speak, of the two creatures. This is why you want to choose critters that are similar in sort of style or skin type or whatever, but fur and scales is one that you can still do. So anyways, I'm going to repeat that same process by clicking on my cat layer, hold Alt, and then click to sample some of the chest fur right here. I'm going to go back to my fish pixels, and I'm just going to click a few times to add some of that fur data down over here. You'll notice when I click, it moves that little plus sign the same distance. So if I turn on my, if I had my camera on, you could take like one pinky thumb width. I don't know the technical term for this, but one pinky thumb width. And it's going to stay that distance from my cursor wherever I click. So it's important that you resample every so often, right? So this is not looking very believable. We got another hard edge happening here. All right. So I'm going to hold Alt and click. And I'm going to actually stay on my cat layer this time. I'm going to bring some of that fur data back in. Hold Alt and click to reset my anchor points. Bring some of that fur data. Alt and click. Bring some of that arm data. Because the fur on the arm and the fur on the chest have two different sort of qualities to their color, qualities to their light. You want to translate that to your creature combo, your hybrid here, as best you can. And then the other tool I want to show you is one that's a little bit less, it's less precise, if that makes sense, is the word that I would use to describe it, because it's not going to be sampling from a particular area. Asterisk, let me just show you. So the way that you would use the patch tool, which is one that I've mentioned before, it should be underneath the spot healing tool brush. If you click and hold on the spot healing tool brush, you'll get the patch tool right here. It looks like this little quilt square sort of thing. This has an important step, just like alt clicking, where we need to Control G, group these things together, and then Control J to duplicate that group so that we have something that we can combine together. So why have we done that? It's because we're going to merge these two images together. We're going to do some destructive Photoshop editing, but we're doing it on a copy so that we don't lose our original masks and we don't lose the original positioning of our initial group. So once you have your two groups made, which is the Control G, the same as Illustrator, once you shift click on the layers that you want to group together, what you can do is right click on the group one copy and go down here to merge group. You can also hold Control and press E And when you do that, it's gonna stick them together, combine those pixels, permanently alter them in a way that we can now use the patch tool. So the way the patch tool works, also 2 steps. The first step is you draw an area. It's gonna make a selection. Okay, you can see some line of ants pop up almost immediately. Since we're working on the pixel layer, not the group layer with the masks, the group 1 copy right here, if I click and drag this little window, you can see wherever I put the magnifying glass, for example, over the fish scales down here, it's going to give me a little preview in the window that I originally selected. Okay. The cool part about the patch tool is once I let go, it's going to try and match the color as best it can. So for example, if I wanted to Control D, deselect that, let's make a little bit of a cat half, pull it over to the scales. Okay. Let go, Control D, repeat that same process for the fish half, bring the scales over to the fur, some fur direction, okay? It's gonna start to merge those 2 pixels and blend those colors. Is it ugly? Yeah, it's not perfect, but it is a start to the mixing of the 2 sort of color compositions, skin types, or not skin types, but you know what I mean, like animal exterior types, in order to make this a little more believable. The last thing that you can do is change the blend mode on this group 1 copy layer to something like screen or maybe overlay, so that it adds a little bit of play of the light from the first and the top and bottom layer. Overlay or soft light both look pretty good to me. And then you can lower the opacity of this layer so that it's not so glaring on top of the original. So these 2 tools are going to be very useful. Going to be the patch tool after you've combined them into a single layer. This is called rasterizing. Or the clone stamp tool if you've still got your 2 different pixel layers that you can switch back and forth betwixt. Okay, so these are the 2 tools. These are the 2 tools that I want you guys to look around with. You're good. And see how you can use them to make your animal hybrid combo even more believable by combining their exteriors. Oh, there we go. Turn that back on. So that you can get a nice looking catfish like mine. All right, good luck. I'm going to save this and export it so you can see how it looks. Okay, we'll just save the PSD. Okay, always save your RAWs. And then we're going to go export. Quick export as PNG. I'm going to just put it into the same folder. That is not the same folder. I'm going to go to, I made a new folder for this assignment. I spelled PROJ wrong. Just click save. And it's going to think, okay, we're good. All right, good luck.